You are listening to The Testimonial, a podcast of critical essays bearing witness to the forces that shape our world. We conduct historical autopsies, expose hidden systems, and decode the profound truths within culture, politics, and the seemingly whimsical. Each episode is a deep dive, a forensic investigation. This is The Evidence. You are about to hear the testimonial on the original corruption, how apartheid's legalized theft built the playbook for state capture.
Okay, let's start with a number. And it's a big one. 54 billion rand. That was the price tag for just one corrupt contract from South Africa's state capture era, the Transnet locomotive deal. I mean, it's a sum so vast, it's almost impossible to even wrap your head around.
So that number, it just begs the question, right? How on earth was a crime of this magnitude even possible in a modern democracy? Was this just a sudden breakdown, the work of a few bad apples? Or was it something much, much deeper?
Well, the testimony we're looking at today presents an answer that's pretty stark and frankly uncomfortable. It argues that state capture wasn't some brand new sin. It wasn't an original creation at all. It was an inheritance, a direct continuation of a system built long, long before democracy ever arrived.
To really get this, we've got to rewind. We have to go back to what our sources are calling the original crime scene. And this means looking at apartheid not just as a racist ideology, but as a carefully designed architecture of legalized theft, a blueprint for corruption.
The foundation for this whole thing was laid way back in 1913 with the Natives Land Act. Now look, this wasn't just about segregation. This was, for all intents and purposes, the single biggest act of state-sponsored theft in the country's history. The state literally used its own laws to take the most important asset, land, away from the majority of its own people.
And the sheer scale of this theft is just mind-boggling. This chart really shows it. You've got less than 20% of the population being legally handed 87% of the land. This wasn't some accident of the market. No, this was a deliberate state action, all designed to crush a rising black farming class and create a pool of cheap labor that had no other choice.
But it wasn't just about land, right? The theft went deeper. The apartheid state also engineered what you could call a theft of opportunity, of potential. And the architect of Bantu education, Hendrik Verwoerd, he didn't even try to hide it. He was chillingly honest about the goal, saying there was, and I quote, "no place for Bantu above the level of certain forms of labor." The goal was to create a permanent skills gap, locking people out of the economy for good. And you know where this whole system of patronage and looting was really perfected? In the Bantustans. These so-called homelands basically became little laboratories for corruption. They were state-funded puppet regimes where the leaders could loot public money with almost zero consequences. You'd see projects like the Audit Stadium. They weren't built for the public good. They were just excuses, vehicles to enrich a network of loyalists. You play ball, you get a piece of the state treasury. That was the playbook.
So apartheid officially ends, right? But here's the thing. That corrupt machine, it didn't just disappear. The playbook, it just got passed on to a new set of hands. The real question is, how did that actually happen?
And people saw the danger. They saw it almost right away. As early as 1997, a report landed on President Mandela's desk explicitly warning that the new democracy had inherited a fertile ground for corruption from the old system. But in that rush for reconciliation, for stability, that critical warning just wasn't fully acted on. So what happened? Well, a new mechanism slid into place that followed the same old logic, cadre deployment. Now, the intention might have been transformation, but in practice, it became a pipeline for corruption. Step 1, you install party loyalists into key jobs, whether they're qualified or not. Step 2, those loyalists then bend the procurement rules to make sure their networks get rich. And then, the final, crucial steps. You weaken the watchdogs, the police, the prosecutors, to make sure nobody can ever be held accountable. And that pipeline, well, it led straight to what we now call the state capture era. This wasn't some new kind of corruption. It was the old Bantustan playbook, just supercharged and executed on a massive global scale. Just look at the parallels. It's almost a carbon copy. Back in the Bantustans, you had a project like the Audit Stadium. The method? An inflated state contract. The goal? Enrich a local network. Fast forward to state capture. The project is the huge Transnet locomotive deal. The method? The exact same. An inflated state contract. The only thing that really changed was the scale.
The goal was now to enrich a global network. It's the same playbook.
And just like the apartheid state twisted its own institutions to hold on to power, the state capture network did the exact same thing. The Zondo Commission laid it all out, how these institutions were deliberately and systematically hollowed out. As you can see here, the specific tactics might have changed, but the strategy was identical. Neutralize law enforcement, gut the taxman, and use the public service to reward your friends, all to protect the network.
So where does that leave us? What's the final verdict here? Well, to get there, we first have to take apart a very comforting story, a myth, really, about the new South Africa. The idea that 1994 was a totally clean break from the past. Because that myth, that idea of a clean break, it turned out to be absolutely catastrophic for good governance. By acting like the state was just a neutral machine that needed a new driver, the country missed the chance to do the deep ethical cleaning that was so necessary. The moral victory over racism was celebrated, as it should have been, but the actual machinery of state corruption was left almost completely intact, just waiting for new management. And all of this forces us to ask a really, really tough question. Did apartheid truly end? I mean, if we define it not just by its racist laws, but as a system designed from the ground up to capture the state for the benefit of a small, connected network, then the answer gets very, very troubling.
When you look at the evidence, it seems pretty clear the system didn't die, it just adapted. The racial ideology was thrown on the scrap heap, but its operational core, that logic of using the state for patronage, for private gain, of rewarding loyalty over competence, that was simply migrated. It shed its racist skin and found a new host inside the new political elite.
The struggle for the soul of South Africa is no longer a struggle against a legally defined enemy. It is a struggle against a ghost in our own machine, a ghost named corruption, whose first language was apartheid.
You have been listening to The Testimonial on the original corruption, how apartheid's legalized theft built the playbook for state capture. Follow us on social media at The Testimonial for updates and to join the conversation. If you believe a topic deserves a testimony, let us know.